Essential definitions. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh no, I have to listen to a bunch of boring definitions. And you're right, you do. But I'm going to ask you, please don't fast forward over this lecture. It's extremely important. This is going to build the foundation for what we're going to do in the rest of the course. If you don't get these basic definitions down, you are not going to succeed in ITIL. So let's start talking about them. I'll try to make them fun. I'll try to make them entertaining. But at the end of the day, they're just definitions. So we got to work through them. So business. What is a business? Well, a business is something that meets the needs of our customers. It can be private, so a commercial sector, or public sector, governmental. That's what a business is. Now, ownership. Ownership is actually not the ownership of the business, but it's the assignment of an individual or group empowered to exercise accountability for a specific configuration item. So the importance of ownership is any process, application, or service or equipment that is not owned by somebody is going to be forgotten and neglected. It's as simple as that. I've been in a lot of organizations where nobody really owned the process, and what happened is nobody used the process because nobody cared for it and it became outdated and not usable. So ownership becomes very important. It's going to be who is accountable and responsible for that process. Service. So service is a means of delivering value to our customers by facilitating the outcomes the customer wants to achieve the ownership of specific costs and risk. So service is the thing we're doing. We are in the service business, right? If we're doing IT or we're doing manufacturing or anything, we are providing service to a customer. If we're doing manufacturing, we might be providing a doll to a child. That's a service, right? If we are doing IT, we are servicing the computers and fixing people's problems. Service is really important. Service and process are two of the big definitions we're going to cover here in this lecture, and you got to make sure you understand them. Outcome. So what is an outcome? Well, it's the result of carrying out an activity, following the process, or delivering a service. So outcomes can come in two forms. They can be the intended results you expected, or they can be the actual results. Now what do I mean by that? Well, we can set up this process and we think it's going to take our customer wait time from 3 minutes down to 30 seconds. We're going to have a 10%, we're going to reduce it down to 10% of its prior value. So that's our outcome that we are expecting. Now we put the process in place, we've been running it for a couple months, and we look, and customer calls are actually only 60 seconds on hold. That's still good. We had an 80% reduction, but we didn't get the 90% reduction we were looking for. So it's the actual result or the intended result. Our intended was 30 seconds, our actual was 60. That's the outcomes. IT service management. We've mentioned this a lot in this course. We're going to continue to talk about it. But IT service management is the implementation and management of quality IT services that meet the needs of your business. This is performed by IT service providers through a proper mix of people, processes, and information technology. Now, people, processes, and technology, each individually is good. When you put them all together and it works in a nice rhythm, you're going to get a lot of efficiency and it's going to work really well for you. None of them individually can do everything, but all three together give you that really beautiful, sweet synergy. Service providers. So what's a service provider? Well, they provide services. Pretty easy, right? They provide services to internal or external customers. So these can be broken down into three types. Type 1, Type 2, and Type 3. So Type 1, these are internal service providers that actually work within a business unit it serves. So for instance, if I had a group of accountants and we put 1 or 2 IT guys in the group of accountants, those IT guys would be the Type 1 service providers because they're in the unit they're servicing. Now Type 2 is an internal service provider, so it's internal to the organization, but it actually helps more than one business unit. So if we had, for instance, an IT help desk and they help everybody in the organization, that's a Type 2. They are a shared service unit. Now Type 3 is when I start doing service to external customers. So this could be something like I've outsourced some of my functions, or I'm providing a service to my external customers themselves. So for instance, if you call Microsoft and you don't work at Microsoft and they're giving you help desk support, that's a Type 3 example. The next one we're going to talk about is stakeholder. So what is a stakeholder? Well, a stakeholder is a person with an interest or concern in the service provided. And these get broken down into 3 types as well. So the stakeholder can be a customer, a user, or a supplier. A customer is the people or organizations that commission or pay for the services provided. Users are people who have their business activities supported by the IT services provided. So again, if I look back to that accountant, he is a user because he's using the computer that IT provides him. Suppliers are third party. They're Type 3 service providers, for instance, and they're outsourced. So these are suppliers that we can contract out to. So the next one we're going to talk about is process, and this is another big one for the ITIL exam. A process is a set of coordinated activities that combine the resources and capability to produce the outcome that creates value for the customer. Now really that's the key word there, is this thing, this process is going to create value for our customer. Now In the ITIL, if you look at all the books of the ITIL framework, it covers 27 different processes. Each one is a distinct, unique process. For the foundations exam, as we go through the material, we're going to cover 22 of those processes. The other 5 aren't covered in the foundations exam. They're covered in higher level exams. So we're going to have to study 22 different processes and understand them. It's not as scary as it sounds, I promise. We'll get through all of them together through the course of our lectures. So what are some characteristics of a process? Well, a process responds to an event called a trigger. A process is measurable, so we should be able to use metrics, and we should be able to figure out how much does it cost, how long does it take, what is the quality level we get, what's the performance, what's the productivity. All those type of things are measurable so that we can actually measure it with metrics. And I'll tell you, senior leaders, they love metrics. They love those beautiful charts, and they can go, oh look, you've decreased our wait time by 5%. Go you, right? All those type of things are great. Produce a specific result. Now, what is a specific result? Usually a specific result is measurable. And the other thing about a specific result, it's a very small thing. So a process is a very end-to-end thing that gives us an outcome that is a specific result. The fourth thing is it delivers a result to a defined customer to meet the expectations. So if your customer was expecting to wait on hold for 10 minutes and you only made them wait on hold for 2 minutes, you had a good positive result for that customer and you met their defined parameters. If the customer wanted you to build them a software program that was going to crunch numbers like Excel and you built them Word, you didn't meet the defined customer requirement, right? So that didn't meet their expectation. So we have to make sure the processes do what they're supposed to do. They start when they're on a trigger, they're measurable, they have a specific result, and they have a defined customer requirement to meet that expectation. The next one we talk about is function, and function is another really important one in the ITIL exam. So service, process, and function, we got to remember those 3. Function, it's a unit of organization that's specialized to perform certain types of work and responsible for specific outcomes. So functions actually perform the activities of the processes. So the process gets broken up into pieces called functions. The next one we're going to talk about is roles. Roles are a position, responsibility, or duty within a certain process or function. So, for example, if I had something like an incident response, I'm going to have different roles as I go through the incident response. I have the end user, I have the service desk analyst, I have the incident responder. All those things are different roles we can have. Now, there's 4 basic roles. There's a service owner, a process manager, and a process practitioner. And we're going to talk about those right now. A service owner can have more than one service, so he doesn't have to only own one service, he can own many services. And they're going to perform things like initiation, transition, and maintaining of that service. They're going to ensure service delivery is met. They're going to identify service improvements that need to occur. They're going to liaison with the process owners. They're going to report and monitor that process and that service. And they're going to be accountable for delivering the service. Now, if you noticed here, all of these pretty much had the word service in them because this is a service owner. The process owner does a lot of similar functions, but they do them to processes. So what's a process owner? Well, a process owner can own more than one process, just like the service owner could own more than one service. And they perform a lot of similar functions, but only on processes. So they're going to initiate, transition, and maintain the process. They're going to define the process strategy and policy. They'll assist in the design of the process. They'll ensure the process is documented. They'll audit the process for efficiency. They'll communicate the process to others. They'll provision resources and training to ensure the process is successful. And they will input into service improvement to make sure we have that continual improvement of that process. And again, these processes are going to feed a larger service. So what's a process manager? Well, a process manager is going to perform the following things. They're going to plan and coordinate activities. They're going to ensure the activities are carried out. They're going to appoint people to the required roles. They're going to manage process resources and ensure smooth running of services. They'll monitor and report on the process performance. They'll identify possible improvements. They'll help prioritize the improvements, and they'll implement process improvements. So really, we start taking this service owner, and that's going to go down into a process owner who feeds him, because processes feed services. And then under the owner of this process, we're going to have a manager of the process who's going to oversee the daily activities. Now, that person is actually going to oversee the practitioner, the process practitioner. And they're the ones who actually do the work inside that process. They're going to carry out one or more activities in the process. They're going to work with the stakeholders to ensure the process is effective. They're going to verify the inputs, outputs, and interfaces of the activities and make sure they're functioning properly. And they're going to update records for the activities that are carried out by the process. So again, the practitioner really does the day-to-day work. The manager oversees him. The owner oversees the manager. And then the service owner is going to oversee all those process people. So, a couple of exam tips for you based on this definitions, because I know I threw a lot at you. You don't need to memorize the definitions word for word, but you do have to recognize the right one. So if I gave you a definition about a service owner, you need to be able to identify that. Or if I gave you something about a function, you need to be able to identify that. Know the generic process model and the process characteristics. So this is going to be important to understand those process characteristics and the basics of what a process is. Be able to differentiate between a service, a process, and a function. Again, those are three big definitions you really got to understand well. Again, a service is made up of processes. Processes are made up of functions. The next one is, if you get asked about a service owner or a process owner, verify your answer matches the question asked. A lot of times these definitions look very similar. Again, processes and service owners both do a lot of the same things. The big difference is that there's going to be the word service in it if it's a service owner. There's going to be process in those definitions if it's a process owner. So keep looking for that and make sure that you answer the right one with the right answer. And that's it. That's the basics of these definitions. Again, I know this is a long lecture. I appreciate you hanging in with me. But again, it's these fundamentals that we got to get down early so we'll be successful when we get to exam day.